particular reason. And she speaks calamities about seas. She says all these things, and these were things written over 200 years ago. And there was a retired pastor from the World Council of Churches that I don't know if you would have heard about, but he was an ex-Adventist pastor. And he was actually still a member of this World Council of Churches, but 2 months ago, or a couple of months ago, he actually spoke, and he actually started telling certain conference leaders that the World Council of Churches was going to vote on a Sunday law and begin to push it towards Congress around January, February next year. Whether it happens or not yet, we don't know, but the point is these things are happening. The great controversy that we know between Christ and Satan and all the prophecies are getting fulfilled before our very eyes. Jesus is coming soon, my friends. Over the last 2 years, so many Bible prophecies and Ellen White prophecies have been fulfilled. But how many people do you see preaching from the pulpits about these things? Don't you see so many of our churches out there luring and catering for the kids with the music, with the programs? This is the message. We are supposed to be bringing this third angel's message to each and every single person out there before it becomes too late. The time is fast approaching when every single thing also that we all own will become worth nothing. And that the only person that we can rely on for anything is Jesus. So I believe it is now, this time as a people, for us to begin to put Him first in our lives, because things are unfolding very rapidly, and we do know that the last events will be rapid and quick. Here's another quote. Ellen White says, "The angel said, 'Destruction is coming like a mighty whirlwind. I begged of the angel to pity and to save those who love this world, who are attached to their possessions and were not willing to cut loose from them. The sacrifice to speed the messengers on their way to feed the hungry sheep who were perishing for want of spiritual food. As I viewed poor souls dying for want of the present truth, and some who professed to believe the truth were letting them die by withholding the necessary means to carry forward the work of God, the sight was too painful, and I begged the angel to remove it from me. I saw that when the cause of God called for some of their property, like the young man who came to Jesus, they went away sorrowful, and that soon the overflowing scourge would pass over and sweep their possessions all away, and then it would be too late to sacrifice earthly goods and lay up treasure in heaven.'" Now, I'm not telling anyone here to go out and sell anything spuriously, but I'm saying surrender your will to Christ and allow Him to tell you when it's the right time to begin giving more of your stuff to Him. Because the bottom line is, in the end, everything we own is going to become worth nothing. And when that happens, it's going to be too late for us to give it to God. And then it will only be those who live by faith and trust in God that will survive in the last days. So I'll quickly, I'm going pretty good for time here, good. All right, well, I don't have to quickly do it. There's everything I've been talking about, like it's good to know that we're in the last days, it's good to know that Christ is coming soon. But there is a very important principle that we need to touch on here. Because we hear it so often that Christ is coming, and especially when you have a preacher of Pastor Sam here, I'm sure everyone knows that big things are happening in the world. But there is a very important question we need to issue. If we are truly that close to when Christ comes, what should we be doing now as a people? We have been around for, the Seventh-day Adventist Church has existed for 160 years or more, right? Why hasn't Christ come yet? Have we been not telling the world? Have we been not going as much as we can to everyone? The funny thing is, like, the more people we tell, the more people are born, and the more people that don't know Christ. And I know at the moment the Earth's population is nearing on, it's funny coincidence, but 666 billion people. It's 665 billion or something like that at the moment, but it's nearing that. But the question, like, that people are growing, the countries are shutting off their doors, so now it's getting harder to take the gospel to the world, and China's just growing, and more people are coming, growing in their country and being born, and how are we going to reach them if the countries are shutting off their doors? Will the message ever be taken to the world? It doesn't seem like it at this rate. But is that the problem? Is that why Christ hasn't come yet? Or is there something deeper, a deeper issue in our own church that needs to be addressed? It's amazing. Like, does everyone here know the story of 1844 and how we came about as a church? Okay. Well, there's an amazing story, and if you look into history and what happened in 1844, the answer for our true revival as a church is found in 1844, believe it or not. You see, if you take a look at a lot of what Ellen White says, she speaks about, and if you look at Scripture as well, it talks about how, like, basically in Scripture, we are basically spiritual Israel, you could say. And she uses Canaan, crossing over into Canaan, as an example of us going into heaven. And the amazing thing is, she actually speaks about a time where we got to a point in history where we were about to cross over to Canaan, and that was in 1888. And if you look at history, in 1888, the same things that are happening now in our world were happening back then. They were just about to introduce Sunday laws. They began to, like, Adventists were going to Congress to debate these things. But then suddenly something happened, and it all died down. What went wrong? Well, interestingly enough, at that time, she speaks about how the message of righteousness by faith was rejected. And that's basically that Christ is our righteousness, and only through Him can we be saved. Only through His righteousness we can be saved. And also that our spirit of mission became very inward. We began to focus on each other and ourselves instead of focusing on all the people out there in the world. And she says that's one of the reasons that it didn't happen. Then she goes on to say that because of that, we'll spend a long time in the wilderness again. But she also goes on to say that the next time we reach the borders of Canaan, we will cross. There will not be a third or fourth time. And just like in 1888, we are seeing the same things happening again. These Sunday laws, all these things starting to come up out of nowhere. So what are we supposed to be doing as a people? Do you think Satan actually is just sitting there and looking at his watch and going, okay, on this date, that's when I'll do it. That's when I'll bring in the Sunday laws. Do you think he's doing that? What do Sunday's laws mean for him? It basically means his reign is nearly at an end, and that his freedom on earth and his judgment is about to take place. Satan doesn't want Sunday laws to come in to politics any more than we do as a people. So why the delay? Is it really the governments or Satan that we're waiting on to bring these things in? Or is God waiting on us? See, I just want to share with you today something that the Lord kind of revealed to me over studying for a couple of months. And if you study the history of what happened in 1844, just think about this for a second. God's people, they thought Christ was about to come on this date. And they had set a date for it. And that suddenly everyone was like, but in Scripture it says that it seems like it says that he's going to come at that time. So it must be right. Then suddenly this movement just took off around the world where everyone was like going, man, Christ is about to come. We need to get ready. So what's the first thing all the people did? They stopped focusing on each other. They stopped fault finding. They stopped looking at what was happening in the church. And suddenly their hearts changed and they said, we need to tell people about God because He is coming soon. That was one of the first things they did. The next thing, they put all their effort into it, whether it be finances or whether it be time, whichever one. They put effort into going out there and taking this gospel and telling everyone. And they weren't going to foreign lands, they were just going around to their little